What kind of music do mummies listen to? Rap music. So today's video is gonna be a little bit interesting. I never film discussion type videos because I'm very bad at just spitting things out, and I'm also super afraid of confrontation and arguments. So posting stuff like this is really out of my comfort zone, but I've never really done a discussion on my channel, and I wanted to try because I do have something that I would love to address today, and that is books and the messages that they give off. Specifically pertaining to young adult books or middle grade books and how those authors kind of shape young readers' minds. So the idea for this video came whenever I was reading Watch This Guy by Kirsten Hubbard, an excellent middle grade book. I was reading this just thinking about how this book would be portrayed to a young person reading it that's 11, 12 years old, and the message that that would convey to them. And that kind of got me thinking a little bit more on the things that I had read, that how they affected me, and other books that I read, and how those themes and messages would come off onto people that are younger than me. But not trying to put any labels on young adult, but I think predominantly young adult books are written and read by mostly girls. I know there are tons of male authors, there are tons of male readers, but a lot of the readers of YA are typically younger girls, but the genre is basically written for. I think that there's such a theme of young love in YA. It's impossible to find a YA book, first of all, that does not have some sort of side relationship. I have no idea where I was going with that, but I wanted to talk about Twilight. No shame, Twilight was one of the first books, if not the first young adult book that I read, the first series I read. So I was somewhere in middle school the first time I read Twilight. I loved it. I thought Edward was the best thing in the entire world. I loved Bella, and because Bella was Bella was at least 3 or 4 years older than me, I looked up to her because I saw how mature she was, and she was a role model for me. At 12 years old, I was obsessed with the series. But now, as I'm 17 years old, I haven't reread Twilight because I'm scared to reread Twilight. I really don't want to revisit it and realize how much I hate it, because the more I age and the more I mature and look back on Twilight, I start to find more flaws in it. Me as a 12-year-old, I'm reading this relationship between Bella and Edward, and the more I am able to grow up, the more I see it as a not good relationship. And at 12 years old, there was no distinction between good and bad, so I thought it was okay, and I thought that type of relationship was normal. Not to get too far into Twilight, but New Moon is the most absurd book to me because Bella's whole depression spiel after I just said Warner on accident instead of Edward. Oh my god, okay. I thought these were real feelings that I should have, and I looked up to Twilight so much, and now, being older, I realize Twilight is not a good example for 12-year-olds to be basing their lives and their emotions and their expectations of men off of. I'm paying attention more and more to how books communicate messages to young people and whether or not they give off messages that are good or healthy or representations of things that should be happening in comparison to abusive or unhealthy relationships or themes. One of my favorite things about reading is that you do get glimpses into other people's lives, which is why I love when I see young people reading, because that kind of instills an empathy in them for other people, and they have a better understanding of emotions, and it just helps with character building so much. They're exposed to certain situations that books can help them sort through because they've already read about it before, and I just think all in all, books are great for helping people figure things out about their lives by experiencing it in a fictional world. Don't get me wrong, I love that about reading. But also, I feel like it's very dangerous if young readers are starting to read books where these situations and these relationships are done in an unhealthy manner. I'm not sure where my point of this video is going. I'm not sure if I'm ranting about books having bad messages. I'm not sure if I'm saying that we need better YA. I'm not even sure if this is a call to action. I just wanted to voice my opinion that there are certain books and there are certain themes in books that I feel like young readers, it's toxic to them, and it's very dangerous that we're exposing teenagers and young people to relationships and themes that are unhealthy. And for example, I want to bring up a book that I read. I hope that this won't offend anyone because I'm about to like slam dunk a book that I hated because of its bad themes, and if you like this book, I'm sorry. Victoria Scott's book, The Collector. This book basically follows a girl and a guy, and the guy works for the devil, and one day the devil says to go and get this one girl's soul. Well, this girl is kind of a loser at her school. She's not the prettiest looking, and the main boy, I'm gonna go ahead and say names, the girl is Charlie, the boy is Dante. Dante decides to stick around Charlie to kind of get to know her, I suppose, before taking her soul, because he doesn't know why he's supposed to take her soul. I don't have the book, so I can't see what age it's intended for. I would give a good guess and say this book is probably marketed to girls 12 to 17 years old, and the main reason why I just think that is absurd and gross is because in the book, Dante tells Charlie, oh, well, if you want to sell your soul for something, then you can get something in return for that. And so she decides to make myself better for Dante to like her and for her friends to accept her. She decides to start changing her appearance. And only then does Dante start to fall in love with her. And I wrote an entire review about this book, and it's kind of really ranty, so if you want to go see my full thoughts and see more examples of how gross of themes this book has, I will link that down below. It's on my Tumblr, but I just wanted to emphasize that morals like that, like I have to change myself to get a boyfriend, or I'm not pretty enough unless I do, well, sell your soul to the devil, not really, but just things revolving around that sort of idea where I'm not good enough until, I think it's totally toxic. And of course that's not in every single book. That's just one example. The Collector is just one example of this idea that probably not very many books have. But just reading that book, it makes me think, are there girls that read this and then afterward didn't feel pretty or didn't feel good enough? And that's what scares me about some of the books that are out there today and the messages that they may be putting off. And I know, I'm sorry, I keep referencing young girls as the readers, but also this could apply to boys. More so, young boys reading this and thinking, oh, okay, so that behavior is acceptable. And likewise with girls, I'm not trying to be any sort of sexist in this video, but I kind of want to end with the thought that there are lots of book bannings and adults who get so angry about content and cursing and sexual imagery and all those different things, but I think it's not as dangerous, it's not as bad for kids to be reading books, and when I say kids I mean teenagers, to be reading books that have bad language and bad imagery. If you don't want your kids to read that, I'd totally get it, and there's different morals with reading that, but I think in the end, there's also a message that's implied in every book, and if there are bad messages in books that parents are allowing kids to read, if a book has a theme in it that is anything anti-feminism or racist or just not healthy for young girls to be thinking is acceptable because it's written into a book, I think a main goal should be trying to eliminate things like that. And again, this is no sort of call to action video. I just wanted to kind of voice my thoughts about this topic, because the more I grow up and the more I read, I'm just becoming more perceptive to what YA is really saying to its readers. So with that said, I'm not sure how this video came across. Again, I'm not good at this whole ramble thing, but I would like to hear your thoughts. Do you agree? Do you have any thoughts about this subject? I just wanted to get this out of my system, mostly because I've read a lot of YA books, and I'm concerned that there are girls out there who have their confidence torn down, or they have warped perceptions of relationships because they've been exposed to books that show relationships in a bad light, that have really abusive relationships, but the author portrays them as normal. Let me know if you enjoyed this, because if so, I will try and do more discussion type videos like this. I would love to hear your comments, and until next time, hope you're all having a nice day. See ya!